we're going to be doing this portrait here. It's a really strong black and white portrait of some man, beautifully lit. To start off with, we're going to do a very different way of drawing. I'm getting a bit of compressed charcoal, traditional natural charcoal work, and I've got a little bit of cotton, old bedsheet that's been cut up. I'm rubbing the bedsheet onto the charcoal to get a good covering. You can see how black it's going, like so. Then I'm going to hold it comfortably. I think so I'm going to have to be pressing down on that surface, and I'm going to start drawing in the face. The eyebrows are incredibly dark, so I'm going in first of all with the eyebrows. I'm trying to give myself enough above room for the hair and the hat, and then I'm going to come down and I'm going to draft in the nose. I'll look at the bottom of the nose roughly being there. Eyebrows will come in. If I want to get a little bit more on there, I should rub it on my charcoal. And then I'm going to have probably the mouth around here. Very simple. Okay, now I've got the side of the nostrils into the laughter lines. I'm bringing in a little bit more darker tone under there. Side of the face. And I'll let the tone up here. And you're getting that section underneath your eyes. Do pay attention to how big this nose drop's going to be, to how relevant your eye size is. So if you look at the width there, when you look there, it's about the same kind of width. You could take it and check the height, the length of the nose as well in relationship to the width. So I need to drop my eyes down a little bit more if that is how wide I'm going to have my nose. Now if you apply the charcoal in this way onto watercolor paper, you won't get as bad a patination from the surface of the watercolor paper than if you were drawing it on. If you draw it on, you'll notice quite heavily patterned surface, which can cause problems. You can also make the tone deeper, adding a little bit more onto your rag, building it up. We're laying in all the dark areas. Charcoal. I'm going to lay down just a little bit where I can find it's very strong darks. A little bit darker tone in, taking it real easy. Building it up gradually. I'm going to use his nose to give me the rough idea of where everything is. grey tones I already have. Now I'm not using my fingers, which I know kind of goes against the rules. A lot of the time, a lot of charcoal artists will use their fingers for this type of work, but you have a lot of oil on your skin and it'll end up turning your paper a little bit yellowy after a period of time. So it's not the greatest habit to form if you want long-lasting, high-quality artworks. See, starting to come together. his hair. Now I think the hair actually needs more darkers put in generally around him. I don't think he's got quite enough of the darker tone for me to take it out. You could use charcoal powder, or you could make your own charcoal powder. It would be a quicker way than doing it than this, but if you haven't, this will work just as well. It's exactly the same, just application. It's a little bit easier with the charcoal powder. You take a brush, dab some on, and you'd be away. Again, just working some of those soft highlights from the hair. You can create some wispy effects by shaping your party rubber in different shapes, and then just flick it on hair. Now I'm going to get a bottle of water. It's a spray bottle. I have a brush. I also have my rag to clean my brush in between this process. I'm going to take my spray bottle, it's using cold water, and I'm going to just mist the picture. Now that means that the charcoal can be kind of moved and manipulated with the brush in a way that you wouldn't be able to do with your fingers. Also do a few other things which I'll show you in a moment. Now the problem that you have, once you use the water in this way on the charcoal, you just can't rub it off again. So you have to be quite sure and know what you want. And that was why I was taking those stronger white highlights in the hair off before doing this. You can always get cloth and you can blot up a little bit if you're finding that you're getting too much charcoal in the area. Use a bit of kitchen oil, do the same. There's something else we can do which I'll show you in a minute. It's really good for hair. You can see here how quick you can get hair done and how realistic hair can be, especially shaggy hair. It's very good for this hair technique. You are very good pros using this. Now if you did make a mistake and you wanted to lift it up and it was dry, you have to basically cut back to the paper white. So you could use a blade or sandpaper to do that. That is in a worst case scenario. This very fine work. If you want something a little bit less fine and more impressionist or atmospheric, the sandpaper can work brilliantly and can give you some gorgeous effects. But your paper does need to be incredibly tough to take quite a battering. That will give it. gives you a bit of a taste of where you could take that. The other thing you can do with the water is if you spray it onto the surface and then you put charcoal into it, it'll go very dark. I'm going to do this with a pencil form. If you do it with a pencil, make sure you leave the pencil out to dry out. If you start getting a lot of water on the lead and then you put it away, you'll find that the pencil will start to rot. I'll show you particularly down here. So it's quite dark in the reference image to the bottom right hand corner. I spray down a little bit of water and then I'm putting a little bit of pencil into it. You can see the dark tone. Now this dark tone will stay dark even once it dries. You could use a brush if you wanted to even it out. So that's on dry and that's on wet. You can see the difference. Obviously you can do this with a stick, but as this is such a fine picture, I'm doing it with pencil form of charcoal. And I'm a little bit worried that's gone too dark, so if I spray it with the water, kind of disperse it. Excess. It's very dark on this side of the picture, so if I spray that with water, I start putting in a little bit of charcoal. It's better to be a little bit at a time. Don't rush it. It's easy for everything to end up turning into a black smudge. The water breaks down the charcoal and you get the lighter touches. It's very dark underneath his nose though. Do you get that darker tone underneath? You see it's starting to come together. Yeah, be careful, it's very wet down here, I'll lean on it. Here's the larger area, but I'm going to get this dark area. I'm going back to a stick. Can't be loose though because you've got this hair you're trying to represent. You don't want too much black or you're going to end up with severe problems. Some dense patches of black and then it comes out. The shadows of the hair. Nice sharpened pencil and start working into the eyes. You obviously don't want this area to be too wet when you're working into it, so do let it have a little bit of time to dry out. Fix, it's okay. It's okay. Come and settle down. It's okay. Goes on the bed. Blending tool. Just even out some darker tones, the shadows. Trick is to make everything look a little bit fuzzy. Try not to be too crisp. Be a lot more accurate than I am. Just kind of playing about. It gives you the idea how you can just work teach her how to make some really interesting portraits. Now what you would do is you need to take out some of the highlights on the hair, and that's when I'd look at using a blade, but because the paper is so wet I need to allow it to thoroughly dry before I can go that road. I'm going to tidy up the hair a little bit more using some pencil work, and then I'm going to allow it to settle, and then I'll come back and just throw in some highlights by slicing through the paper really. Okay, so the picture's pretty much dry. It's not perfect, but it's good enough to do what we're going to do. I'm going to use a Stanley knife blade, okay, which is incredibly sharp and dangerous. So to handle this, I'd recommend having a decent piece of rag, wrap it around a few times. Don't put your hand on the front, but it just helps you get a grip and a control of it, and hopefully will stop you from getting injured. If you do this, it is at your own risk. Right, now taking this, I'm going to use the end to slice into the paper, showing a little bit of the white and exaggerating the highlights on the hair. You might find certain directions on the paper in line with the fibres work better for this effect. So be aware that leaning on the picture, put a little bit of rag on there. Stop you smearing your work. This is still a tad wet. You can see that it's quite subtle on this. For instance, I do just a few little wisps in the eyebrows, increase the texture. You see it a little bit more. And there you go. You've got your basic portrait.